What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. And so I'm going to be going over my top 20 quarterbacks and putting them into a bit of a tier list for you guys. I think that in general, tier lists or tier-based ranking tends to be the best way to really go about entering your draft. I find that it's important to understand that things aren't exactly linear here. Maybe your quarterback 1 and your quarterback 3 in your rankings you find to be very similar, which I think is the case for everybody. As you'll see here, we've got a pretty consensus top 3 for that top tier of quarterback. Um, so it's not necessarily such a bad thing if you have to miss out on one and take quarterback one later. So it's just a good idea to understand where the true drop-offs are at each position so you can understand that you don't want to be the player in general that's taking the first player in a tier. You want to be the guy that gets the last player in the higher tier. So yeah, it's really fun making these videos as well. I'll be doing a video for running back, wide receiver, and tight end tiers as well, but let's just get into the quarterbacks here. So starting us off with the first quarterback, I'll put in S tier. I've got my quarterback 1, Jalen Hurts. He's got a consensus ADP of quarterback 3 right now. I think that in general, the top 3 quarterbacks, you can pretty much rank them however you want them. I just think that Jalen Hurts is the safest given how much rushing upside he has, how involved he is near the goal line. There's really nothing you can't say about Jalen Hurts that hasn't already been said. He's been truly fantastic from a fantasy standpoint last season. I think he's got it in him to be even better this season, given that the Eagles' defense should be a little bit worse this year. With that being said, there's going to be more games this season where they don't necessarily need to take their foot off the gas in the second half. We saw that a lot last season where you'd see Jalen Hurts with like 3 touchdowns and 200 passing yards in the first half, and then the Eagles wouldn't score again the entire rest of the game because they just didn't need to. You'd see a lot of like Boston Scott and all that, and I think that might happen a little bit less this season. The Eagles are still going to be a great team. They'll probably win 12 or 13 games again, but I think that there is room for Jalen Hurts to improve even more than what he did last season. So moving on here, we're going to get into the second player here. My second overall quarterback, we've got Patrick Mahomes. So obviously, again, nothing nothing can be said here about Patrick Mahomes that hasn't already been said. He's just locked and loaded. He's going to be a top 3 quarterback again this season. He's got an ADP of quarterback 1. He's my quarterback 2. There are arguably some concerns about the wide receiver room in Kansas City, given that they lost Juju Smith-Schuster, who is their leading receiver outside of Travis Kelce last season. But there's no concern for me on my end. They've added Richie James. They added Rashee Rice as well. We're going to get year 2 for Sky Moore in this offense. I think Kadarius Toney is going to be involved as well, and obviously Travis Kelce is still a monster. We've seen Patrick Mahomes put up MVP level seasons before. He's been an MVP in this league. We've already seen him throw for over 50 touchdowns in the NFL as well, so it's certainly possible that he could have another outlier of a season and break that 50 passing touchdown mark. And if he does that, he's going to absolutely break fantasy. So he doesn't offer the same rushing upside that Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen do, but he's clearly a top 3 quarterback in fantasy, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with ranking him number 1. So next I've got Josh Allen. He'll be my last quarterback in S tier. He's my quarterback 3. He's the consensus quarterback 2. And like I said, he's obviously just a monster. He's got really great weapons in Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. They added Dalton Kincaid this offseason. Obviously, Dawson Knox is still there. They've got a nice young running back in James Cook. And they're going to be one of the most pass-heavy teams. They're super aggressive. Josh Allen has no fear about throwing the ball deep down the field. And on top of that, he's just super involved as a rusher, especially when they get near the goal line. Josh Allen could have 10 rushing touchdowns and 40 passing touchdowns this season. There's not many quarterbacks you can say that about. And yeah, not much to be said about Josh Allen. He's going to be a clear top 3 quarterback. And if you want to rank these 3 however you want, I don't have any problem with that. But I think it's a pretty clear top 3 in S tier. So getting on to my quarterback 4 here, we are going to put him in A tier. We're looking for Justin Herbert. So Justin Herbert, he's ranked as my quarterback 4. He's got a consensus ADP of quarterback 7, so I'm a little bit higher on Justin Herbert than consensus. I think that Justin Herbert is one of the few guys outside of that top 3 that could actually really crack that top 3 at the position. He's actually pretty mobile. He offers just as much on the ground really as you'd see out of Patrick Mahomes. I think there's a world that exists this season where the Chargers just put up monster numbers on offense. Their defense isn't great, so they're going to need to put up points to win games. They're obviously in a loaded division. They're going to have to put up a lot of points to win those games as well. And they've just got a ton of weapons on this offense. Obviously, we know they have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, but they've got Austin Eckler, Quentin Johnson, their first-round rookie this year. I like Gerald Everett. I like Josh Palmer. They've got a lot of guys that I'm really confident in on the offensive side of the ball. And they've added Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator instead of Joe Lombardi. I think that's a pretty huge upgrade. Kellen Moore always runs a really fast-paced offense, one that really pushes the ball down the field. And I think this is going to be a team that's going to be near the top of the league in pass rate. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Justin Herbert lead the lead in passing attempts this season. And if that happens with how talented he is and how talented his pass catchers are, I don't think it's at all impossible for him to lead the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. If that happens, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Justin Herbert finish as the quarterback 1 this season. So up next after Justin Herbert, we'll go to Joe Burrow, who is my quarterback 5. I will also be placing him in A tier. I think he very clearly belongs in this same tier, just one tier below the top 3 here. Like I said, I think Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are really similar. I personally think that Justin Herbert just has a little bit more upside this season, given that he offers a little bit more on the ground. I think he's got a worse defense. He's going to be on a team that needs to throw the ball more, and there's going to be more passing opportunity for him. But Joe Burrow's got absolutely loaded weapons himself, and Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and they added Irv Smith this offseason. Joe Mixon's coming back. I think Joe Burrow's going to be a pretty safe top 5 quarterback here. I think there is a world that exists just because he's quite a pocket passer where you could see a bit of a down year for him if the touchdowns don't come. I wouldn't project that. He's still my quarterback 5 in my rankings, but if he gets some bad touchdown luck this season, a world would exist where he drops just because he doesn't have that same rushing floor. So now moving us into C tier, we're going to go to my quarterback 6, and that is Kirk Cousins. Let's see if I can find him here. Here he is. This one might be a little bit shocking for you guys. I know that Kirk Cousins is generally a pretty consensus, like fringe quarterback 1, but he's another player that I think is going to compete to lead the league in passing attempts this season. I think he's honestly a really quality quarterback, and they've got really great weapons themselves. They've got probably the best wide receiver in the NFL in Justin Jefferson. They added Jordan Addison in the offseason. They've got TJ Hawkinson and KJ Osborne as well. And they let Dalvin Cook go this offseason, so they've made it very clear that they're going to be intending to pass the ball a ton. Their defense, as always, lately is just going to be horrible again this season. They're going to need a lot of shootouts. This is going to be a guy that could throw for over 5,000 yards. I think I'm actually projecting him to lead the league in passing yardage this season, which is kind of shocking, but I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility at all that he does that. I think it's very reasonable to say that he could throw for 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, and I think there's touchdown upside beyond that. We've seen Kirk Cousins finish as the quarterback 6 twice already in his career, so I don't think this is a ridiculous ranking for him at all. I think he's one of the safest picks you can make at the quarterback position as well. I just don't see a world where he really busts. Then going to my quarterback 7, this one's a bit more of a hot take. I've got Russell Wilson as my quarterback 7, despite an ADP of quarterback 18. I think this just means that I'm in on the bounce back for the Broncos as a whole this season. I think that Sean Payton's going to make this offense a hell of a lot better. They've got, honestly, a really quality wide receiver core in Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, and Marvin Mims. I really like their young tight end in Greg Dulcich. I like their running back room in Javonte and Samaje Perine. And I'm just really confident that Sean Payton's going to get the most out of Russell Wilson this season. I'm projecting him for slightly below his career averages in passing yardage, passing touchdowns, and pass attempts, and that's still putting him in as my quarterback 7 here. I'm projecting him to run a little bit more than he did last season. We've seen that he slimmed down this offseason. I don't think 300. I think 300 to 400 rushing yards is pretty reasonable for him, adding on a couple rushing touchdowns as well. I think he's going to be a really quality value at the quarterback position, and I think that there's nothing wrong with leaving your draft with him as your quarterback 1. And then after Russ, I've got a quarterback that I think is really poised to break out this season as my quarterback 8. I've got Trevor Lawrence. I'm also going to be putting him in B tier. I think Trevor Lawrence has all the tools necessary to really, truly break out this season. They've added Calvin Ridley to that offense, and an offense that already ranked top 10 in most scoring categories last season. And honestly, it didn't feel like they were a top 10 offense last season. I think that there's definitely a world where they take a step up again this season. In Carson Wentz's second season under Doug Peterson, we saw him put together the best season of his career. This will be Trevor Lawrence's second season under Doug Peterson. So I think we're going to see a big step forward by this entire offense. Trevor Lawrence is going to be a big part of that. He's another quarterback that I'm just more than comfortable leaving the draft with as my quarterback 1. And then after Trevor Lawrence, the last quarterback that I'm going to be putting in B tier. Actually, now I've got 2 more in B tier, but the last one here is going to be Tua Tagovailoa. Let's see if I can find him. There he is. I think Tua's honestly got all the tools to be a top 5 quarterback as well. We saw him be putting up top 5 quarterback numbers last season when he was healthy. He's arguably got the best wide receiver core in the NFL, at least the best duo between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. This is an offense that's been extremely pass heavy. We saw them throw the ball at more than 60% of pass plays that Tua was healthy for last season. That's near the top of the league. He was super efficient in terms of yards per attempt, completion percentage, deep ball accuracy, all the stuff you look for in a quarterback. He offers a ton. He doesn't offer a ton of rushing ability, so I think that really does sort of keep him out of that S tier. I don't really see a world where he finishes a top 3 quarterback, but He could very easily climb into that A tier here. I think he's a really talented quarterback, and if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a steal at quarterback 8 or at quarterback 9. I've got him ranked at quarterback 9. His ADP is quarterback 11 even, so I think he's a great value this season. And the last quarterback I'll put in B tier, my quarterback 10 overall, is going to be Lamar Jackson. This might be a little bit low, but I still think he's a more than capable quarterback one for your fantasy team. I think that we've just seen him honestly struggle to put up quality fantasy numbers since putting up the MVP season a few years back. I'm still not a huge believer in the wide receiver core in this offense. Zay Flowers is a rookie. We see that Rashad Bateman's banged up. He's still dealing with that ankle or that foot injury from last season. Odell Beckham is probably just over the hill. I'm not expecting anything from him. So I think again we're going to see an offense that relies really heavily on Mark Andrews and just struggles to get much production from anyone else. I do think that their transition to a new offensive coordinator is going to make them a more pass-heavy team. So there should be some more points scored by this Ravens offense, but that could remove some of the rushing upside that we've seen from Lamar in the past. They've also got healthy running backs again this season, so they'll be able to run the ball once they get into the red zone, so that could just limit his touchdown numbers. Like I said, I'm still more than comfortable leaving my draft with him as my quarterback 1, but I've got him ranked as my quarterback 10 despite an ADP of quarterback 5, so I don't find myself drafting much of him, but he's a more than capable starter for sure. And now we're going to get into the first quarterback in C tier for me. It's Matthew Stafford. Let's see if I can find him. You'd think he'd be right here. Regardless, we've seen Matthew Stafford put up really quality numbers for the Rams, and it's just his first season there. Last season was sort of a lost season for the entire Los Angeles franchise, just with Matthew Stafford getting hurt, Cooper Kupp getting hurt, Allen Robinson was a horrible signing by them in the offseason. Their defense was banged up. It was just a really bad season for the Rams last season, and I think that there's certainly plenty of reason to be skeptical. I wouldn't be exactly comfortable leaving my draft with Matthew Stafford as my only quarterback, but I think that there is certainly a world where he climbs up into that B, maybe even that A tier if he puts up a really good season like he did just 2 years ago. He's got Cooper Kupp to throw the ball to, which is obviously super beneficial for him. I think that he's still a good quarterback with a really good offensive coordinator or head coach in Sean McVay. This is going to be a team that might be a little bit better, especially on the offensive side of the ball than people are thinking. So I think Matthew Stafford's certainly capable of putting up good numbers again this season. The next quarterback I'll talk about is going to be Geno Smith. He's also going to go right into C tier. We actually saw him finish as a top 6 quarterback in fantasy last season. In theory, this offense should only be better. They drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first round. They added Zach Charbonnet as well. So this is an offense that's really loaded and just ready to give Geno Smith all the help he needs from a weapon standpoint. I think Geno Smith's a perfectly competent player. He's not going to offer a ton of upside. We saw him put up that quarterback 5 finish in the season last season just by being really consistent. He really didn't finish inside the top 5 at the position very often last season. I don't think he offers any true upside, but I think he's a pretty safe draft pick, and he could certainly climb his way up into that B tier, but I don't think top 5 at the position is really an option for him this season. Moving on to my quarterback 13, we've got Justin Fields, who he's a guy that honestly I'm much lower on the consensus. I've got him ranked as my quarterback 13. It's been one of my most surprising projections so far this season. I came into the offseason really thinking I'd be all in on Justin Fields this year, but I've got him projected to break the rushing record for a quarterback. I am projecting a slight regression in rushing touchdowns though, but with that being said, I'm giving him 5 more passing touchdowns and 500 more passing yards than he had last season. And even with that, he's still standing out as my quarterback 13. He's being drafted as the quarterback 6 right now, so I don't find myself drafting much of him, but I think he's certainly got the upside. He's one of the few guys this low that could crack up into that A tier, even that S tier possibly if touchdowns break right for him. We saw him put up several week-winning performances last year, so he's certainly got the most upside of anyone in this tier. And I think that there is a world where I'm really just wrong here and he ends up being a quarterback 1 or a top 5 quarterback. So I think that I'm comfortable drafting him if you really want to, but he's just a guy that I wouldn't be comfortable drafting as my only quarterback, given that we've seen he's already had an injury history so far in the league. It's been tough for him to stay healthy, especially when he was running a lot right last season. This isn't a team that wins very much. I think DJ Moore is going to make the offense better, but I'm not very confident in their offensive philosophy in Chicago either. So it's just hard to really project Justin Fields to take that leap forward. I think he'll be just fine this season, but quarterback 6 is just a little bit too high for me. And that'll close out C tier here. Moving on to D tier, I'm going to bring in DeSean Watson, if I can find him. Regardless, with DeSean Watson, we've seen him be elite in the past. He's obviously been a top 5 quarterback in fantasy several times so far in his career. I think that he's certainly got plenty of talent here. I like the weapons he's got in Cleveland. I just don't know that he really has it in him to get back to that elite performing level that we saw earlier on in his career. It's been a while since he's played meaningful football. Last season he looked really bad. He really wasn't as mobile either. It looks like he's just not available on this tier list, so he won't have the picture there, but you can pencil in DeSean Watson there. I'll just put Jacoby Brissett there just to sort of fill that void. I think that he's going to be a fringe top 10 guy. I've got him ranked as my quarterback 14. He's being drafted as the quarterback 9, so I really just don't see him paying out for that ADP. He is probably one of the highest upside picks you can take being drafted this late because we have seen him be a top 5 quarterback in the past. I think he's got plenty of good weapons in this offense to be a really talented player, but I'm just not going to bet on that full regression back to the mean for him. I think that the weapons aren't special behind Amari Cooper. I'm not a huge Elijah Moore fan. I still think this is going to be a really run-heavy team. So much as I think DeSean Watson could bounce back, I just don't see anything special happening this season. Next quarterback I'll put in D tier is going to be Daniel Jones. I think we probably saw the best season of Daniel Jones' career last year. He's going to offer a pretty safe floor just because of how much he's going to run the ball. I don't love the receiving options in New York here for him. There's a risk of Saquon holding out, and there's plenty of stats that show that Daniel Jones is just super dependent on Saquon Barkley to be a meaningful contributor to this offense. So I think he's got a pretty low floor and a pretty low ceiling, but I think he could be a fringe quarterback 1 this season. He'd be a guy that if you're drafting as your quarterback 2 just to play in bye weeks or injury weeks, I think that's fine. But if you're drafting to be a starter for you, it's probably not going to work out. Next, I'll have Derek Carr here. I think Derek Carr has actually got more upside than I'm giving him credit for right now. I think that he's going to be a player that honestly is going to put up really quality numbers. He's probably going to be a fringe quarterback 1 this season. I really like the receiving weapons they have in New Orleans between Chris Olave and Michael Thomas. I really like Rashid Shaheed as a deep threat as well in that offense. Alvin Kamara is probably only going to get suspended for a couple games. And Derek Carr has been just really solid so far in his career. So if you want to draft Derek Carr as just like a really late draft pick and, play him on bye weeks, I don't think that's a problem, but I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving my draft with him as my quarterback 1. Up next, I've got Dak Prescott, who another guy, I think he does have upside to really climb up into that B tier here this season. I think that in general, though, we've seen Dak Prescott sort of just trending backwards so far the last few years. He led the league in turnovers last season at the quarterback position despite missing several games. They did go add Brandon Cooks for him this offseason, so there is the possibility that maybe he just has a better wide receiver room. Michael Gallup should be healthier, so things could be better for Dak Prescott this season, but in general, I think this is going to be a team that wants to lean on their defense and run game. They haven't ruled out re-signing Zeke Elliott as well, so we could still see this team be a really run-heavy offense, and if that's the case, I just don't think there's a ton of upside for Dak here. I think he was super efficient last season, and it made him useful on a per-game basis, but they were one of the run-heaviest teams in the NFL last season. They've made it clear from what they've said as a coaching staff that they want to run the ball even more this season. I think that he will again be a fringe quarterback 1, but I don't think there's a whole lot of upside for Dak here, and I just can't see myself relying on him as my quarterback 1. Outside of Dak here, we'll just go into some flyers I think you can take later on. The next quarterback I'll talk about is going to be Kyler Murray, but I'm going to put him in F tier. Obviously, F tier is a little harsh here. He's been a top 5 quarterback on a per-game basis in games he's played, so I think if you want to take that wait-and-see approach at the quarterback position, if you want to draft Kirk Cousins and then draft Kyler Murray later, give yourself that upside for the second half of the season, I think that's certainly an approach you could take. There's plenty of weapons in this offense for him to succeed. James Conner's still a really quality running back. I really like Marquise Brown this season. Rondale Moore is an okay wide receiver. I like Michael Wilson, their rookie this season as well, so they've got weapons in this offense. They're going to be a bad defense. They'll have to throw the ball a lot to win games. They're obviously have shown they need to know what they want to do with Kyler. I don't think he's going to sit out too many games this season just because he's sort of got to prove himself so that they don't draft a quarterback this offseason. I think Kyler Murray is just a really quality dart throw to take at the quarterback position if you wait on it. After Kyler Murray, I'll talk about Aaron Rodgers and then one more quarterback just to round out F tier. We saw Aaron Rodgers honestly take a really significant step back last season. Obviously, it could have been everything to do with losing Devontae Adams. He's obviously got a much better wide receiver core now that he's in New York. But this is going to be a team that I don't think is going to pass the ball very much. They're going to be really reliant on their defense to win games. They've got really talented running back in Breece Hall that they'll want to lean on when he's healthy. And like I said, we just saw a really significant step back for Aaron Rodgers last season. He's not going to offer much on the ground. I think it's going to be a low passing volume offense. It's just going to be hard for him to be a really meaningful contributor. I think he could throw for 30 touchdowns this season if he's super efficient, and obviously Aaron Rodgers normally is, but I just don't see that upside. I think the best case scenario for him is he finishes with just inside the top 10 at the position, and I've currently got him ranked as my quarterback 18. He's being drafted as a quarterback 17, so I don't really find myself drafting Aaron Rodgers much, but I think that if you want to play it safe, he's probably going to be like a high-end quarterback 2, fringe top 12 guy at best. He really falls right in line with a lot of these other guys as well, but I just don't think there's much upside there, so I don't find myself drafting him much. And then the last guy I'll talk about is going to be Jared Goff, rounding us out. It's actually going to be the last quarterback I'll touch on here. I think that Jared Goff is actually going to be primed to have a really good season again compared to what he did last season, but obviously he just doesn't offer much rushing ability. This is going to be a team that we've seen what they want to do when they get towards the goal line. They really want to give the ball to their running backs. They've brought in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So I don't think there's too much upside for Jared Goff here. I think he could certainly have some quality spike weeks and be a meaningful bye week fill-in for you, but I don't think you should be drafting him to be your quarterback 1. There is a world where maybe Jameson Williams comes in along with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and this offense just unlocks a new tier, but they've been one of the best offenses in the NFL for the last 2 years, so I can't really see them being much better than they've been, and Jared Goff has still just been a fringe quarterback 1, so I think that's kind of the peak ceiling you could see from him here, and obviously we've seen Jared Goff fall apart as well. So again, Jared Goff's another guy. I think all the guys from C to F tier, they're obviously pretty similar. I think they're guys that have varying amounts of upside, and the guys with upside obviously have much lower floors, guys like Kyler Murray and Justin Fields there, and then you've got guys with safer floors but lower ceilings like Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, etc. So in general, in my drafts, I find myself trying to leave with either getting a value of one of these top 3 quarterbacks in S tier in the 3rd round, or I want to get Justin Herbert in the 5th, or I find myself waiting and taking a combination of Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson or something like that. I think that in general, anything outside of B tier, and I'd be a little bit worried about who I'm going into the season starting at my quarterback positions. So I think there's about 10 quarterbacks that I'm really confident in this season, and then once you get past that, I think there's a pretty significant gap. So if you miss out on that B tier of quarterback, I really would recommend that you draft 2. I think even if you do draft a B tier of quarterback, I mean, I think you're fine if you draft Trevor Lawrence. He's probably the safest of them for me. But if you draft Kirk Cousins, Russ, Tua, or Lamar, I would recommend doubling up. Obviously, that depends on who you get. If you get Kirk Cousins, you probably want a more high upside guy. If you draft Tua or Lamar, maybe you just want a safer pick in that second quarterback just to sort of hold yourself down in case there's an injury. So this is a fun video to make. I'll be doing another video like this, just going over my running back tier list, and I'll do the wide receiver and tight end tier list as well. So these are some longer videos. Let me know if you like them. I haven't really done many tier lists like this before, so if you like them, do let me know in the comments. I'll be sure to keep making them if you do. And if this was your first time on the channel, thanks for stopping by. I'd love for you to subscribe to it if you like the content and want more videos like this. I plan on putting out pretty much a video a day until the start of the NFL season, then we'll be doing 4 or 5 videos a week once the NFL season starts as well. We're really trying to grow the channel as much as possible. We're somewhere around 300 subscribers right now, and I'd love to hit 500 by the start of the NFL season. So it's been a lot of fun. I'd really appreciate it if you'd help me out. If you like the channel and want more content like this, please do subscribe and click the bell so you get notifications when I put out more videos. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.